You are now listening to the HBCU Wall Street podcast.
Hello, Aggies. This is Miss Fred from Carolina Chicken and Waffles. This episode of the HBCU Wall Street podcast is sponsored by Carolina Chicken and Waffles, the home of our family famous fried chicken and waffles. Aggie pride.
Carolina chickens and waffles.
How's the chicken?
So good.
Man, it was amazing. The food tastes like it looked.
I mean, no offense to my grandma, but your chicken's better, so.
That chicken was so good. I told him if my mama was on the truck, I'd come up there and slap the hell out of her. Because it was good like that.
You're drinking a beer that tastes like home, reminds you of Washington, and your good old-fashioned chicken and waffles. It's great.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Aggies Excel. Today we have with us Shanita Penny. How are you today?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing great. Living life. Excited to get into this discussion. And so I want to start off and I'm going to tell the audience a little bit about you. So, of course, Shanita graduated from the illustrious North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University. She's a 2003 graduate and is a cannabis legalization advocate, strategist, and entrepreneur. She's also the founder and principal of Budding Solutions. It's a boutique cannabis consultancy. She continues to positively impact the burgeoning cannabis industry, policy, environment, and community. Ms. Penny lives to end the stigma associated with cannabis through her advocacy, business, and responsible consumption. I was fumbling over that a little bit, but I was getting excited because I'm like, yes, I want to talk about cannabis. I am definitely pro-cannabis. That's all I'm going to say right now, but I want to talk about your perspective and get a greater understanding of it. Now, I want to start off like this. This is how I usually start this off. As an Aggie, when you hear the word G-Ho, what comes to mind?
My favorite time of year.
Absolutely.
It's the homecoming that Aggies of my era built. You know, we did that.
Absolutely. It's an amazing experience. It's not an event, it's an experience. I tell people, unless you've been, it's hard to even explain it to you. It's like a huge family reunion / party / networking event with all the people that you're cool with and love that lasts for a whole week. Like it's an amazing event. But let's get into this. I want to learn. So today is for the audience, but for me too. Like I'm curious to learn, some of the things that's going on in the back end industry and the cannabis industry. Now, first let's start off like this. How did you get started in the cannabis industry?
Well, for me, it was, a very young age, probably, in hindsight, a little too early. So I had a personal relationship with the plant, since my 9th grade year of high school. And it was just something that was always a part of my life, but certainly not something that I led with, something that I talked about, publicly. It was just something that I did. It was a part of my life. And so as, I was moving through my career and, paying attention to what was happening in the world, I realized that, there was a legalization movement happening around me. There were, decades of legalization efforts that, I wanted to learn more about and be a part of. And so it was just very easy for me to embrace this emerging industry by kind of getting in where I fit in. And so,
Okay.
Exploring how I could transition my career and lend my talent, my passion, and all of that to the movement.
Got it. And I often find in business, being an entrepreneur as well, I find in business when you decide to take on a business that is personal to you and that you're passionate about, it tends to mean a whole lot more, but you tend to give more effort without even realizing it doesn't even feel like a job sometimes. Do you feel that way as well?
Absolutely. And I'll go back to your, earlier point. GHO for me was the time of year where I'm like, oh, I'm out of office. I need Friday off. I need Monday off. And when I positioned myself as an entrepreneur, I loved what I'm doing so much. Things were happening so quickly, and I'm all in. And so I found myself over the last several years, looking at GHO and still saying, this is my dedicated time. I'm going to make it to GHO. But we've been able to incorporate so much of what we're doing as it relates to entrepreneurship and networking. And so it's been amazing to, really put my all into this, but also sleep well at night, knowing that I'm working this hard for something that really matters to me.
Gotcha. Great. Now, you mentioned, kind of merging a few areas of your life. Now, I have this question. So how big of a role do HBCUs play in like the cannabis policy, researching, and even supporting Black entrepreneurs today?
Not big enough. I mean, we have the potential to really be the epicenter of what's happening in this movement as it relates to entrepreneurship. Our institutions are, world-renowned research institutions. And so we should be leveraging that as it relates to, all of the technology and research that needs to go along with the evolution of the policy. We also have seen our HBCUs, be hubs of, students for justice movements, whether it was civil rights, whether it's been, women's rights, voter rights. Our HBCUs are just, perfectly positioned to support what it is that we need to see for our communities in this movement.
Gotcha. Now, so I'm interested in this topic because, of course, so I am a cannabis connoisseur, and I think there's still, even though it's been legalized a lot of places, so here in the the DC area, it's legal here for both medical and recreational consumption and possession, but in a lot of places it's still not. And with your work, do you find, even though it's legal, that there's still a very negative stigma that comes with this? And then I have a follow-up question with that. What type of people do you find still have a negative, opinion of it? Is it the older generation? Is it more Blacks, more whites? What have you seen?
The stigma is definitely still there, even in places where you have, fully legalized for both medical use and adult use, right? That stigma is rooted in, everything from racism to, all of the reefer madness that a lot of folks consumed because our government was putting it out there. And so, the stigma is one of the hardest things. I remember, 7 years ago, even though medical cannabis was legal here in Maryland and in DC, when I would meet with clients to talk about, their cannabis business or their advocacy, it was very hush hush. They didn't want other people to know what we were talking about. And so you had people that were ashamed of what they were doing. And I find that hard to reconcile personally. I can't be ashamed of what I'm doing. And so that's one of the reasons I had to jump out there and be vocal and and show people that all of that stigma is, rooted in, again, falsehoods that were, and propaganda that was fed to us. When I think about the folks that oppose it today, they come from all walks of life, right? One of the biggest things that was eye-opening for me was to see just how adamantly against legalization a lot of faith leaders were, a lot of Black leaders, and they were really skeptical of what benefit legalization would have for us. They didn't want cannabis stores just popping up on every corner like liquor stores, right? Like methadone clinics in some communities, especially right here, like in Baltimore. And so they wanted to understand the real detail and nuance that comes along with public policy. And so one of the things that faith leaders and Black community leaders were able to wrap their heads around was the idea of, legalization, including things like criminal justice reform. So as we legalize, as we move towards legalization, what are we doing to make people whole that have been impacted, especially disproportionately impacted, like Black and brown communities? And so we look at criminal justice reform. We look at how cannabis tax revenue can be reinvested into the community. And we look at the potential for economic opportunities for our, again, HBCUs, our small and Black businesses, and our local businesses. You said it earlier, you're pro legalization. I don't care if you are a cannabis consumer or not. Everybody should be pro legalization because we need to be using our public resources better. Policing cannabis, that ain't it. We have, bigger fish to fry. We have more important things to worry about. We have other issues with policing that we need to address. When I think about the communities that have been decimated by the war on drugs, these millions of and billions now of cannabis tax revenue should be prioritized for the rehabilitation of these communities. And so, it is time for us to stop dealing in, again, propaganda and fear. And we have to embrace this plant that has for so long oppressed us.
Absolutely. Now, and me, myself personally, I always have been, but I'm a free thinker. And so I try not to allow other people's perceptions of reality or society to influence what I think about it and how I think about it. And I think a lot of it is just the influenced by society. And I think us, especially here in America, a lot of what a lot of people think is because this is what the media is telling them. This is what the media says. So I had an interesting conversation just really quickly. One time I was having a drink with someone and we brought up the topic of cannabis. And I was like, well, I like it. And I started talking about edibles and stuff. And they were like, well, that's just like, and I was like, so you drink alcohol. Like, we're here drinking alcohol together. We're having a drink. And I was like, how many people do you know that have overdosed on cannabis? How many people do you know that have gotten in accidents and killed people because of cannabis? And I started talking about it, and I was like, I think a lot of your thoughts are not your thoughts alone. And I think even with the cannabis industry, a lot of people's thoughts are not their thoughts alone, because when you look at it and look at the facts of it, it doesn't make sense. And I've always said this, it doesn't make sense that cannabis is illegal anywhere where alcohol is legal. It's just, it's an oxymoron. It's crazy to me.
It is crazy. You have parents that will indulge in and consume alcohol with their children around, and have given, these, nicknames for their alcohol, mommy juice, whatever. And they have normalized using that drug in front of their children and using it in public, and it's socially acceptable. And I think for us, we are moving towards a world where it's going to be just as acceptable for, an adult, a parent, to, say that they are going to have an edible, or that they are going to consume, their cannabis in whatever way it is. I mean, you're seeing the rise of consumption lounges. Folks are going to go enjoy cannabis and not drink alcohol, and then they're gonna go on about their day. I mean, the times are a changing, and it's gonna be very important that we, where we're comfortable and sometimes where we're not, that we push those boundaries and we challenge folks to, really think about what's socially acceptable, and then to your point, to think for themselves.
Absolutely. Just quick shameless plug. I just want to remind y'all, I say it all the time, but Aggies do. Like you'll see what's going on. Aggies, we do. Aggies make differences. Aggies change the world. Aggies, and it's we say that, and I know every college boasts, well, we do this, but the Aggie family, I've run into so many Aggies that are so socially minded, that are so business minded, that are really, really focused on making an impact in the world. And that's so, it makes me so proud to see my fellow Aggies doing amazing things. It makes me proud to say, yeah, I know Shanita. Yeah, I know Shanita. Like Shanita's doing great things. And so let me ask you this, with all the work that you've done so far, what do you think your proudest accomplishment has been?
Really stepping out on faith and lighting the torch of, so many others in this space, and being able to represent the community of business owners that, Black business owners and other minority business owners that came together. And I was invited to testify before Congress. And it was that opportunity to stand there and talk about, the things that were personal to me, the things that, members of that organization had, shared with me. I'm able to, really speak for a community and a movement, and it's on the records. This is in the history books. When we look back on how we got here, I didn't just say, hey, I sure hope they legalize cannabis one day.
Right.
I had to get up and do something and organize other people to do something. So, my proudest moments are, being able to be a voice for the people. My proudest moments include, really seeing everything, the blood, sweat, and tears, come to fruition with the businesses that I've, essentially advocated for the laws to change, competed for, a handful of business licenses, and then to actually get the business up and running and have a successful exit. I have so many highs, and I'm so passionate about what I'm doing that I forget about the lows. And so I just, really, really am grateful and thankful for the opportunity to really just work so hard to see what I want in this industry, and to see this plant like really uplifted, and again to like be a part of the change, especially for Black people.
Gotcha. I think it's exciting to talk to you, and it's exciting to hear someone. Like, I see the smile in your eyes when you talk about certain things, when you talk about certain accomplishments, and so it's evident that this business is personal to you. Now, what else? I know I read that you were doing some things, having some events in North Carolina. Tell us about those events. What are those?
So, things happen very quickly, but not that quickly in cannabis. North Carolina has been working on legalizing cannabis for medical use, at least, for 10 years now. And they have, really, started off the year strong by reintroducing this legislation. So cannabis is coming to North Carolina. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done to get an equitable bill passed, and then to see, an implementation that allows access, that again makes people whole that were impacted by the war on drugs. And so I will be coming to North Carolina this spring. It will be the first of many events. The first conversation that we're going to have is going to be, what's the lay of the land? What exactly is happening here? Because the thing I hate is when, people hit me up and say, hey, cannabis is legal now, I want to get in, or hey, cannabis is legal now, I have this charge that has been on my record for so long. Like, we're going to have these conversations and get people connected very early on. So the first
Got
thing
it.
we'll be doing is coming to talk about the opportunities, especially around getting your record expunged. If you've had, small cannabis crimes that are affecting you, we're going to help you address that, and it doesn't necessarily have to be because you want to be in the cannabis industry. Again, a cannabis conviction can keep you from accessing, housing, student loans, growing in your career. There are some jobs that won't hire you with those charges. So it's important for us to, ensure that legalization in North Carolina affects everybody in a positive way. And that's going to be individuals, communities, businesses. So really excited to finally be coming home.
That's amazing. And I'm really proud of the work you're doing, because it's easy to, follow a path that people have laid out to you. It's so much harder to create your own path. So that's very commendable, Shanita. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for making my cannabis consumption a little easier in other places. Now, let me ask you this, because my listeners, a lot of times they want to know, who is the person? Like, they're interested in what you're doing business-wise. They're excited about that, but they also want to know, okay, also, who is this person? Who is Shanita? So let me ask you this, Shanita. If I right now said, listen, I'm going to give you $10,462, and you can't use it on your business at all. You have to use this money strictly for your pleasure. You have to take a weekend, and whatever you want to do that weekend, whatever fun looks like to you, whatever relaxation, whatever it is, but you just have to use this money on you. What would that weekend look like for you?
A weekend with $10,462 to spend. Oh man. I would call up a few Aggies, and we would get together. We would find an Aggie with a resort property to rent for the weekend, because that's how we do. And then we would relive our glory days and just break bread. We definitely gonna find a destination where cannabis is legal. And one of my favorite things to do is just spend time with Aggies. So I would that's my personal circle. That's my business circle. It would be very easy. And then I would make sure that I throw a little bit back to tea.
Gotcha. Good stuff. That's an amazing answer. Sounds like a great time to be had. So now I want to tell you, I don't mean to disappoint you. I don't have that disposable $10,462 right now, but when I get it, right. I'll let you know. And if you just happen to want to invite me along with the rest of the Aggies, I would be much obliged.
You got it.
Gotcha. So let me ask you this. Is there anything else that you really want people to know about your work?
The main thing I want people to know is that this industry and this movement, we need you. This is one of the fastest growing, if not the fastest growing industries in the U.S. We can't talk about, diversity, equity, and inclusion if we aren't thinking about how to support this industry, to be a part of this industry, to innovate this industry. And so what I know is that there are a ton of professionals, there are a ton of creators and investors that are needed in this space. When I look around, yes, this looks a lot different than it did when I first got into this industry, but we still have a long way to go. So, I really want to encourage folks to look at the cannabis industry as an opportunity. It's an amazing industry to support if you're in the professional services space. If you are in the legal space, there are a ton of opportunities. You can't do anything without lawyers. You can't change laws. You can't make people's lives better. You can't start businesses and grow businesses. Lawyers have a great great opportunity to not only participate in the industry, but also, again, ensure that the policies are equitable for our folks. And so I don't want to do this alone. I don't want to be the only one. And so I'm always around and available for folks that are saying, hey, I'm interested. I want to get involved. I want to know more. There's absolutely an opportunity for you.
Great. Now, for people that want to get involved and want to know more and want to follow your work, like how would they be able to find you? How can they connect with you?
I used to be on the scene a little bit more. I had to roll it back. And,
Gotcha.
That's why I'm grateful for social media. I am on all the platforms, even Twitter now. I don't debate policies and things like that. I don't just do consultations on social media, but you can certainly get in touch with me there. Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Shanita Penny. I'm not hard to find.
Gotcha. Great. Well, I think this is amazing work, because even past a lot of people, I've heard some people think ignorantly that it's just a social thing, that it's just, they just wanted to do this for social reasons, but it's so much more than that. I'm sure but I want everybody to know it's so much more than that. You can't talk about, like you said, you can't talk about diversity and not talk about this. You can't talk about inclusion and not talk about this. You can't talk about justice and fairness in this country and not have this discussion, because unfortunately, cannabis has destroyed so many Black families. Cannabis has destroyed the career paths of so many Black men and women, unfairly, of course. And when you look at, I tell people all the time, I was having a conversation with somebody, it was like, well, I don't think it should be legal because it's a drug. I'm like, listen, if alcohol is legal, this should be legal. And if Xanax is legal, like, I know you got to have a prescription for it, but people overdose on that all the time. Like, I can go down the list of things that people overdose on that are legal because it's making a lot of people a lot of money that don't look like us. But I'm proud of what you're doing in this space. I'm happy that you're doing it. I'm excited. It's personal to me. I'm even more excited that you're an Aggie that's doing this. Just another thing for me to brag about the A&T. Like, see, I told y'all, look, we doing everything. Aggie's doing everything. But I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you sharing this info with the community. And we look forward to seeing greater things from you. We look forward to seeing, how you progress and how you turn the world upside down in this industry.
I'm looking forward to it. I thank you so much, and super excited to be connected with you.
Absolutely. I appreciate you. And y'all, this has been another episode of Aggies Excel, and we'll holler at you later.